Rockefeller, son of a devil. Never write a love letter, you a real stepper. You a real stepper. This man told his son to be nice but be vicious. You one of the elites, so stay in your position. Don't let these slaves in your heart, don't operate in feelings. They lazy, they dumb, they always chillin'. Make sure your heart numb enough to take away their children. Make sure you keep them numb enough to kill their own children. Put sugar in their house, since they don't snort powder. Put the truth on labels and bleach all the flour. Put your foot on their neck and take away their power. Give them itty bitty checks so they give you their power. Make them cry for vacation.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, my brothers and sisters on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, my brothers and sisters on Instagram, and my Be Strong and Courageous family on Zoom. Good morning. How's everybody doing today?
Good. Good morning, brother.
Good morning, good morning. Thanks for joining us for another Bible study. You know, we understand that there are certain people like ourselves, but there are people out there that have no desire to go into like a religious system or a religious building at the appointed time by our nation on Sundays to get the word of God. So we are providing an alternative. So our Sunday morning Bible studies at 11 a.m. Eastern. And I'm excited about it, excited about, you know, what we're going to share not only today, but the weeks coming forward. And it's been beautiful digging into the word over the last couple of days because our brother Lace, over the last few weeks, he has been in Maccabees, real good Bible studies, Poetic Lace on all platforms. Go check it out, where he was digging into historical facts that tie in with the Bible, right? And a group of people, a community, standing up in face of adversity, death, and with all boldness and courageous, right? Refusing to compromise, to fold, and to go against the way that God is calling us to live. Our brother JD last Wednesday, if you was on Patreon, if you're not on Patreon, please join us on Patreon. Be Strong and Courageous. Very beautiful things happening on Patreon. And we were discussing marriage and relationships and the importance of having the right people around you, being mindful of who you surround yourself with. Not just marriage type of relationship, but any relationships, friendships, business, anything that will hinder, alter, derail our walk with the Father, right? And even yesterday in Sabbath Bible study, when we were talking about servant leaders and the importance of the development process, being able to disciple people, is just another element of the importance of community and having the right people around you. So today's Bible study is titled Community versus Environment. Community versus environment. Because in the nation that we live today, and just this world in general, it is a common thing that's accepted. I know I've said it before. I know of a lot of our peers, a lot of our brothers and sisters have said it is where we come from. Our environment is what shapes us, is what makes us who we are. So we're going to discuss today, is it our community, the people that we have around us, the people that we surround ourselves with, or is it the environment that shapes us as a people? And how has it, how will it, how may it affect our walk with God, right? We've all come from different places, backgrounds, from different states. Some of us from down south, some of us from the West Coast, New York, right? And we've all come to the conclusion at some point in our life that the way that we act, the way that our character is, the way that we speak, treat people is all because of where we come from. You know, us down south, we got that Southern hospitality where everybody waves and everybody speaks and everybody's so kind. But those of us from the South, is that true?
No, sir.
So we're going to start really digging into the surface, obviously get into the word, so we can make a better conclusion and a better determination. Is it our community, the people that we have around us, or where we come from that makes us who we are? And hopefully we'll walk away with a better understanding according to scripture, according to what God is trying to show us in our daily walk, how he wants us to operate under any circumstance, right? We all know, just growing up, living through life, you've seen good kids that come from good neighborhoods, raised by both parents. Are they all necessarily good, productive, not only citizens in this nation and in this world, but in God's kingdom, just because they were raised in a certain environment?
No, sir.
Or bad kids that come from bad neighborhoods, slummish conditions, you know, the hood, a lot of where a lot of us come from. Does that necessarily make them bad? We have seen people from both sides of the track. We've seen people that are from superpower, well-developed, well-funded countries. America, Europe, Russia, China, right? And people that come from these places has done some very horrible, vile, despicable, ungodly things, especially in this nation. We've had people that have come from war-torn, small, undeveloped, not so developed countries, and they have grown to be productive citizens, not only in this nation, other nations, but in the kingdom of God. So is it really where we come from or the environment that we in? I have a real good friend of mine. Hope he's watching. I'm gonna send this to him if he ain't. And he is a wonderful, wonderful person, good-hearted person. And he raised two sons. He has one son that is married and has beautiful children, has a great job. His wife has a nice job, and they are doing fairly well for themselves. And he has another son doing a 25-year bid for armed robbery. And I remember having a conversation with him, and he was like, Derek, like, man, how, like, what did I do wrong? Like, and I remember having this conversation and was like, what do you mean? What did you do wrong? You had both children in the same environment with the same opportunities, the same options. You had one son that went this way, surrounded himself with certain people, and his other son surrounded himself with certain people. Y'all get what I'm saying? Is it our community, that the people that surround ourselves with, or is it the environment? Because as we're going to read today, your environment can change. Just like that. Your circumstances and your environment can change. But who you decide to surround yourself with, who you decide to be around, to call yourself in community, whether that is physical or not, can help you sustain a certain mindset, sustain a certain lifestyle, no matter the environment that you're in. This is not some spooky, biblical, mystical concept. Basic humans understand this concept. Right? So we'll discuss today, is it our community or the people that are around us, that people that we're around every day, or the environment that we live in every day? Which one is responsible for molding us and shaping us to who we are currently? Everybody good? Everybody following me? We're going to go to Daniel. We're going to read Daniel today. I'm going to do my best to not have to do this in two parts. I was studying for this Bible study, and it's so much information, as we know, in Daniel, but we're going to read Daniel. We're going to try to get through Daniel chapter 1 through chapter 6, and we'll skip around. So I'm going to ask for your grace, your mercy, and your patience as we dig through the word today. So we're going to start at Daniel 1, verse 1. Daniel chapter 1, verse 1. Give everybody a few minutes. Everybody there? Daniel 1, chapter 1, verse 1. So in the third year, in the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord delivered Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand. Who delivered Jehoiakim, the king of Judah, into Nebuchadnezzar's hand? God did. Thank you, my brother. God did, right? So now an environment just changed. And in the very beginning, before we even start to get into the word, it's a nugget right there. And that nugget is, that nugget is God's hand, and we understand that God's timeline and the things that is about to start happening to this world, correct? And as we start to understand this thing, understand that it's God doing these things, and our environment is going to change. How will we proceed? How will we behave? How will our mindset and our characters be once the environment starts to change? Especially when you understand God's character, God's timeline, how God operates. Right? Said, then he carried off to the temple of his God in Babylon and put in the treasures of the house of his God. He took the articles from the temple of God, and he carried them off to the temple of his God in Babylonia. Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, the chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace. So what Nebuchadnezzar did, he sent his chief official, to pluck some people from a community, right? After he just besieged the city. So their environment is about to change. And as we go in this walk, sometimes our environment may change for the better. And if we're not careful, we'll start to assimilate more to the environment than and it started to shape our character and get away from our purpose and where God is calling us to be. Does everybody follow what I'm saying? Right? So here's a besieged city, a besieged people taken captive, but a group of them that's plucked out of this community, right? They're brought into the king's palace. And he was to teach them the language, the literature of the Babylonians. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. And they were to be trained for 3 years. And after that, they were enter into the king's service. So they get enough. Listen to what the word says. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. So they're well-informed, they're handsome without any physical defect, they're smart, they're sharp, they come from a good environment, from a good community. But within that community, you have people that surrounded themselves with the right people. Because just because you in community, just because you're around and surrounded by people, don't mean that you're surrounded by the right people, around godly people. You're not getting godly wisdom. So you can be surrounded by a community of people that will allow their environment to change them and start to assimilate and compromise into said environment. And we thinking we good because we in community. We're not mindful about the people that we surround ourselves with. Just because they look like us, or they talk like us, or they from where we from, or they are same age. And all of these things that we do that consider ourselves a part of groups and community and these little pockets of society, But when environments start to change and conditions start to change and circumstances start to change, it's going to be very, very important of the people that you have around you. I'll keep going at verse 6. Says, among those who were chosen were some from Judah: Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. The chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. I can never say that name. Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Meshach, and to Azariah, Abednego. But Daniel, y'all gonna notice a common theme here. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food. With the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself in this way. Now, God had caused the official to show favor and compassion to Daniel, but the official told Daniel, I'm afraid of my Lord the king. When we go out here and we don't allow circumstances, environments to change our mentality and our character and the way that we operate, God, and we go where God tells us to go, and we do what God tells us to do. We are in Daniel 1. Right? God says, I'm with you wherever you go. I got people everywhere. Stay on mission, stay focused, stay honed in, keep your eye on me, stay faithful, pray every day. Then God will start to move things. He'll start to move pieces. He'll start to work in places unseen. He'll start to do things that just do what we're supposed to do and let God move. Daniel, Hananiah, Azariah, Mishael, they own different type of time, and they focus. They are locked in. They have surrounded themselves with wise, godly counsel. They don't allow their environment, their circumstances to get them off mission. And you're going to watch God move. So with something as simple as the king's food, they stood on it. Then the guard said, then Daniel said to the guard, he started talking with wisdom, tact, kindness. Because the official said to him, I'm afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned you food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than the other young men? Daniel said to the guard, please test your service for 10 days. Give us nothing but vegetables to eat and water to drink. And in 10 days, compare our appearance to the young men that you gave the royal food to. And he agreed, and he tested them for 10 days. And at the end of the 10 days, they looked healthier and better nourished than any of the young men who ate royal food. So the guard took away their choice of food and wine, and they were to drink, and gave them vegetables instead. He who can be trusted with a little can be trusted with much. So in verse 17, here comes a little bit more. To these 4 young men, God gave knowledge and understanding and all kinds of literature and learning. And Daniel could understand visions and dreams of all kinds. You see how God can start moving with you, doing things with you when you focus, when you surrounded yourself with the right people and y'all on God timing. See how God can move?
And we don't switch up.
And you don't switch up. You ain't wishy-washy. Because you're living in a wishy-washy environment. We're living in a wishy-washy system. And if you compromise and you adhere and you let the environment mold you, you become wishy-washy. You become inconsistent. And at the end of the time set by the king, to bring them into his service, the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. And the king talked with them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So they entered to the king's service in every matter of wisdom and understanding, which about the king questioned them. He found them 10 times better than all of the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. Pay attention to how wishy-washy the system and the environment is as we go through Daniel today. He realized that they had 10 times more wisdom and understanding than all of these wise people that he had in his kingdom. And he knew how they operated. He knew what they stood on. Can the world, when you go out to your job, your schools, that everywhere outside the world, is there a way that you can operate where the environment can see what you stand on, who you stand for, what God you serve? Is that possible?
Yes, sir.
Scripture says, let your light shine, let God, so they can glorify your Father in heaven. You operate a certain way. Don't let the environment dictate who we are, mold us into who we need to be. When God is saying, my way, do things my way, and I'll mold you. My ways, my character, the way I operate. Let's go to chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2, verse 1. We're gonna jump around a little bit, but everybody with me? We good?
We good, bro.
So this is the second year of his reign, the second year of Nebuchadnezzar's reign. He started to have dreams. Right? Everybody know this story? Started to have dreams, and he could these dreams just bothered him. Right? Bothered him. Let's pay attention to how wishy-washy the environment is, how wishy-washy the system is, how wishy-washy even some of us may be. Right?
Yeah.
After he just went through, King Nebuchadnezzar went through this experience of there's at all of these wise people I got around me, these dudes over here, like 10 times more. Don't nobody know what they know. Don't nobody have that type of wisdom. Yet when he had these dreams, that ain't even on his mind. He wanted all the astrologers, all the magicians, all the enchanters, all the bring me them wise men. Tell me, interpret my dream. Right? No, go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
No, the king was already used to his own environment. So when somebody, I don't want to go forward too far ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So like it was easy for the four guys to stand out, and as we could start coming into it, he was so used to hearing what the other his enchanters and stuff used to tickle in his ear, that it didn't seem right to him at one certain point in time. Like, because I'm sure before he spoke with them before, you know what I'm saying? And he got like it sounded good what they were saying.
Yeah,
but with the dream, it just didn't sit right with him with what they were telling him.
Yeah, well, he he knew they were trying to run some game on him. If you go,
right.
If you go, he said, bring them all in here. Tell me this dream, right? So the king summoned the magicians and the enchanters, sorcerers, and the astrologers to tell them what he had dreamed. He wanted them to tell him what he had dreamed. He wanted them to know. He didn't want to tell them what the dream was. So when they was like, yo, all right, tell me what, because he said, look, y'all tell me what this dream is, or I'm going to kill everybody. All right, king, just tell his servants your dream and we'll interpret it. Just tell us what you. And he said in verse 8, I am certain that you are trying to gain time because you realize that this is what I have firmly decided. right? But just, once again, it's this that's the environment that you live in, right? And even you got all of these titles and all of these wise people around you. It's an ignorant approach when you don't have God in it. It's an ignorant, it's a no result, baseless waste of time when you don't have godly wisdom, godly counsel around you.
And you can get used to people telling you what you want to hear instead of the truth. And that's what you mean with some of us. Like, you know what I'm saying? We get used to just liking what people telling us. So when the truth actually come around, oh no, that don't sit right with me. For some.
That's right. Godly counsel, godly wisdom is the only way we're gonna get results. It's the only way we're gonna progress. It's the only way we're gonna move. Or you're gonna let the environment that you live in say, oh, I'm just like this because I'm from the South. I'm like this because I'm from New York. I'm like this because I'm from Europe. I'm like this because I'm from America. It's just how I am. I just say what's on my mind. I just tell people how it is. I don't play. Y'all know all the stuff that we say. And it's just unwise. But when you are wise, or you have wise people around you, when you're seeking godly wisdom, when you're asking God to show you the way, when you're relying on him, when you rely on the Holy Spirit to guide you in everything that you do, think, and plan, you start to move different. You start to stand out. God starts to do things. Reliance on him. We've been talking about that, right? Not self-reliant, relying on the way that I'm going to move. So this made the king very angry and furious that he ordered the execution. We're at verse 12. The execution of all the wise men of Babylon. So now, although he did not call in the godly council, all the wise men are going to be put to death. So the decree was issued, and men were sent to look for Daniel and his friends to put them to death. When Arioch, the commander of the king's guard, had gone to put to death to the wise men, Daniel spoke with him with wisdom and tact. Wisdom and tact. He asked the king, why did the king issue such a harsh decree? The commander then explained the matter to Daniel. At this, Daniel went to the king himself and asked for time so that he might interpret the dream for him. Look at the importance of having the right people around you when the environment starts to change, when circumstances start to get tough, when it starts to look grim, when you're staring at death in the face. Verse 17 says, Daniel returned to his house and explained the matter to his friends. He urged them to plead for mercy from the God of heaven concerning this mystery, so that he and his friends may not be executed with the rest of the wise men of Babylon. Went into prayer. God, what you want us to do, how you want us to move, please let us. Y'all get it? Yes, no matter what we're facing, what environment that we may approach, things change like this.
So, bro, you telling me, so when Daniel was issued that, he didn't just start freaking out and just screaming and crying. He was composed, and you know what I'm saying? He went and spoke with the king himself. That's what you're telling me?
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Moving with wisdom. To speak with wisdom and tact, you have to have wisdom and tact. You get it? To operate a certain kind of way, to speak a certain kind of way, you have to, this is the mind, it's reflect, the mouth speak what's in your heart. Surrounded itself with wisdom. So they pray to God. And during the night, the mystery was revealed to Daniel in a vision. Then Daniel praised the God of heaven and said, praise be the name of our God forever and ever. Wisdom and power are his. He changed the times and the seasons. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells within him. Then Daniel, we dumb it down to 24. Daniel went to Arioch, whom the king had appointed to execute the wise men of Babylon, and said to him, do not execute the wise men of Babylon. He didn't say, hey man, don't execute me and my partners, because we got it. We got it. Do not execute any of the wise men of Babylon. What'd you say, bro?
And I forgot the guy's name already. He already had a pretty decent rapport with Daniel, so it was easier to believe him, because remember, he, you know what I'm saying, about the food and everything. So it was easier for the guard to actually believe and listen to Daniel.
That's right. Wisdom intact from the very beginning, because that's just how Daniel moved. That's how all four of them moved. They were in community. They were on the same type of timing. They sharpened one another. When one failed, one picked them up. In their weak moments, the strong people stood in. When the strong person got weak, y'all get what I'm saying? They sharpened one another. They picked each other up. They had wise conversations, wise wisdom. They had wise counsel. They prayed together, fellowship together. Didn't tell each other what each other wanted to hear. Told each other what they needed to hear. Held each other accountable. Loved one another. Down in 25, Arioch took Daniel to the king at once and said, I have found a man among the exiles from Judah. I have found a man from amongst the exiles of Judah who can tell the king what his dream means. So Daniel goes to translate the dream, and he tells them in 27 that no wise man, no enchanter, no magician, no diviner, none of these wise people, or the way that you have described them wise, none of them can reveal these things, but only God can. I'm not even revealing this to you. He goes to reveal the dream, breaks it down for him, right? So let me go down. So he breaks down the actual details of the dream is not important for today's study, but please read Daniel when you get a chance, right? But if you go down to 40, I'm sorry, y'all. 45, it says, the great God has shown the king what will take place in the future. The dream is true, and its interpretation is trustworthy. Then King Nebuchadnezzar fell prostrate before Daniel. Please pay attention to this. Hope somebody catches it at the end. Please pay attention to this in 46. Paid him honor and ordered that an offering and incense be presented to him. Then King said to Daniel, surely your God is the God of gods, the Lord of kings, and a revealer of mysteries, where you'll be able to reveal this mystery. Then the king placed Daniel in a high position, lavished many gifts on him, and made him rule over the entire province of Babylon, and placed him in charge of all his wise men. Moreover, at Daniel's request, the king appointed Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego administrators over the province of Babylon, while Daniel himself remained at the royal court. You see how their environment changed, right?
Yeah.
But their character is not going to change. The way that they operate is not going to change. You see when they stood on the mission, when they stood on, like, God will start moving. You don't have to assimilate. You don't have to fold. You don't have to compromise. Even in the face of death. Go ahead, Stedman. I know you were about to say something.
I mean, it's just like the words say, you make your enemies your footstool. The king fell prostrated, and for people who don't know, I just found this out. Prostrate, just face down, like he's laid out in front of him.
The king.
He knew, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the king. He knew that, and Daniel gave honor to God first. He didn't say he gave honor to God. So when he revealed it to the king fell down, and that's why God always said give praise to him, so everybody else can honor him. Because the king, as we know, he brought his other stuff to his God's temple. So he never even, was even thinking about God, but he fell down and thanked Daniel because of his God to reveal that to him.
Well, he had an experience, but watch this, and this is what I mean about not adhering to the environment and not letting the environment dictate anything, or the system, or all of these things that we're in dictate anything. Because after falling prostrate to his face, after saying God is the King of Kings, after having this experience, let's go to Daniel 3. And be careful that we don't, after we have a Holy Spirit experience, after God shows us things, after he reveals us things, after we understand his timeline, after we understand his character, after he understands what he's revealing to us, after you've been around wise and righteous wisdom and counsel, go back to what the environment is providing. Going back to what you know. Going back to bad habits. Daniel 3, King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold. You see what I'm saying? Made a golden image, a golden false, right after this experience. Right? Now let's pay attention. He summoned the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all of the provincial officers to come to the dedication of the image that he had set up. So the satraps, prefects, governors, advisors, treasurers, judges, magistrates, and all of the provincial officials assembled for the dedication of the image that King Nebuchadnezzar had set up. And they all stood before it. Right? Then the herald loudly proclaimed, nations and peoples of every language, every community, every group of people, everybody. This is what you are commanded to do. As soon as you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, pipe, and all kinds of music, you must fall down and worship the image of gold that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall down and worship will immediately be thrown into a blazing furnace. Right? Therefore, as soon as they heard the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the harp, all kinds of music, all the nations and peoples of every language, all nations, all communities from every environment fell down and worshiped the image of gold Nebuchadnezzar had set up. At this time, some astrologers came forward and denounced the Jews. They said, King Nebuchadnezzar, may the king live forever. Your majesty has issued a decree that everyone who hears the sound and all kinds of music must fall down and worship the image of gold. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be thrown into a blazing furnace. But there are some Jews. Y'all catch that? There are some Jews who set over the affairs who you set over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who pay no attention to you, your majesty. They neither serve your gods nor worship the image of gold you have set up. Even when their environments change for the better. Got that promotion, live in that nice neighborhood, your kids go to that good school, you got that nice bank account, you go on vacations, you got, life is good. But a time's going to come. And will your environment and your position and all of these things that this system has given you, who you going to be? What you going to stand on? Furious with rage, we had 13. Nebuchadnezzar summoned Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego so that these men were brought before the king. And Nebuchadnezzar said to them, is it true, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the image of gold I've set up? Shouldn't Nebuchadnezzar know by now how they operating, how they moving?
Yeah, he should. But like you said, it was so entrenched in him.
So now when you hear the sound of the horn, the flute, the zither, the lyre, the harp, the pipes, and all kinds of music, If you are ready to fall down and worship the image I made, very good. But if you do not, you will be thrown immediately into a blazing furnace. That then what God, listen to this language, will be able to rescue you from my hand. Look, I'm just telling you from personal experience and the decisions that I'm making in my life. This is the language that the environment says to you. This is the type of language that they use when they see that you stand on principles and morals and righteousness and godly ways. That's how they talk to you.
Trying to make you down.
And you got to be okay with it.
Yeah.
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him. See, this is what I'm talking about right here. This that talk right here. And this how God wants us to be and surround ourselves with people who think and operate like this. King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. First of all, that is a response in unison. They on the same page, same type of timing, and you know what they facing. It's death is staring them in the eyeball. If we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from it, from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, with all due respect. Y'all catch this language? Y'all see the wisdom? It ain't a whole bunch of yelling and all. Y'all get what I'm saying? Even if he don't, your majesty, we ain't serving your gods and we ain't worshiping the image of the gold that you had set up. We standing on it. Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. Y'all catch that? He ordered the furnace heated 7 times hotter than usual, and commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, throwing them into the blazing surface. So these men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they had on robes. God is painting a picture here with his word. They got on robes, trousers, turbans, other clothes, and they were bound and thrown into the blazing surface, in the blazing furnace, right? Watch how God operate when we obedient and we go where he tell you to go. This is a great example in verse 22 of how he with us everywhere we go. And all we got to do is be strong and courageous and don't fear. From what we understand at this story, before we read some more, where did God be there, protect, and save Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Where did that happen? From what we understand. Anybody?
Where did he save them at, or
where did he save them at? Where was he there for them to save them?
We're talking about this particular instant. I mean, he was in the furnace.
He was in the furnace, right, Stedman?
Yeah. Yeah.
Watch this, bro. This is so beautiful. I had that same understanding. God is with us wherever we go. It's not just when we in the circumstance, on our way to the circumstance, he's with us wherever we go at all times. Watch this.
And real quick, bro.
Go ahead. Real
quick, I don't want to get misunderstood that even when they say even in death, because even in death, of course you're going to be with God. So, you know what I'm saying? Why not have that same mentality, whether he saves you from it or if he don't?
Watch this, bro. The king's command was so urgent and the furnace was so hot that the flames of the fire killed the soldiers who took up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And these 3 men, bro, he was already there. Why didn't it kill them?
Yeah, you're right.
God is with you wherever you go. Stay focused, stay on mission, have the right people around you, and stay locked in, and I'm with you. 24. Then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet in amazement and asked his advisors, weren't there 3 men that we tied up and put into that fire? Certainly, they replied, certainly, your majesty. Says, look, I see 4 men walking around in that fire, unbound, unharmed, and the fourth looks like a son of God, son of the gods. Nebuchadnezzar then approached the opening of the blazing furnace. Y'all catch that? Somebody caught it. Servants of the Most High God, come out, come here. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out of the fire, and the satraps, prefects, governors, royal advisor crowded around them, and they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies. They saw the fire not, it was a hair that was singed. The robes weren't burnt. They didn't even smell like fire. Here's another experience. Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. They trusted in him and devoured the king's command and were willing to give up their lives rather than worship and serve any God except their own God. Therefore, I decree that the people of any nation or any language who say anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be cut into pieces and their houses be burnt down into piles of rubble, for no other God can save in this way. Stood on it. Everybody following me? So we're going to go to chapter 4. We're almost done. I'm going to get y'all through. Get y'all out of here. Go to chapter 4. And we're going to jump down. You know, Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. Daniel interpreted the dream. And he told, he told Nebuchadnezzar about this dream. And he told him that in 24, verse 24, 4 and 24, right? This is the interpretation, your majesty, that this is the decree the Most High has issued against my lord the king. You will be driven away from people, and you will live with the wild animals. You will eat grass like the ox and be drenched with the dew of heaven. 7 times will pass for you until you not acknowledge that the Most High is sovereign over all kingdoms of the earth and giving them to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots, acknowledge, I'm sorry, I lost my spot. I apologize. 7 times will pass by you, acknowledge the Most High sovereign over all kingdoms on earth, gives you to anyone he wishes. The command to leave the stump of the tree with its roots means that your kingdom will be restored to you when you acknowledge that the heaven rules. Therefore, your majesty, be pleased to accept my advice. Renounce your sins, and by doing what is right, and your wickedness will be kind. Your wickedness by being kind to the oppressed. It may that then your prosperity will continue. Right. All this happened to Nebuchadnezzar 12 months later. So a year later, he's walking on the roof of his royal palace. All these experiences, all of these things that he's went through, all of the worldly wisdom he's been around versus all of the godly wisdom he's been around. And a year later, he's on the top of this royal palace and he says, is this not the great Babylon that I have built as the royal residence by my mighty power for the glory of my majesty? Y'all hear that language? If we're not careful, we'll have a mindset of the house that I bought and the degree that I went to go get and all of this education that I have and all of the things that I've built. No God in it. Don't want no God in it. Don't need no God in it. Don't desire no God in it. So God ain't in it. And when God start to tear all that stuff up and all that stuff starts to break down, the system starts to break down and all these things, now you panicking. Immediately what had been, we're at 33, immediately what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like an ox His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claw of a bird. Man, he at the bottom of the bottom. And at the end of that time, I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes toward heaven and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honored and glorified who lives. I honored and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion, an eternal dominion, his kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and with the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, "What have you done?" At the same time that my sanity was restored, my honor and splendor was returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all of his ways are just. And all of those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. God be giving us so many nuggets and wisdom, the way that we can operate and navigate in this world and make it to his kingdom. And he gives us stories like this because a smart man learns from his mistakes, but the wise man learns from the mistake of others. We're going to go to Daniel 5, try to get through Daniel 5 and 6 real quick, and I'm out of your hair. I appreciate everybody's patience. Daniel 5. Verse 1. So King Belshazzar gave a great banquet. This is the son of Nebuchadnezzar for 1,000 of his nobles and drank wine with them. And while Belshazzar was drinking his wine, he gave orders, man, they are having a good time. And he gave orders to bring in the gold and silver goblets that his father, Nebuchadnezzar, had taken from the temple in Jerusalem, so that the king and his nobles, his wives, and his concubines might drink from them. So they brought in the gold goblets that had been taken from the temple of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his wives, and concubines drank from them. And as they drank, they praised the gods of gold and silver, bronze, iron, wood, and stone. They just having a great time. They drinking and partying and praising their false gods. And then all of a sudden, verse 5, suddenly the fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall near the lampstand in the royal palace. The king watched as the hand and wrote, and his face turned pale. He was so frightened that his legs became weak and his knees were knocking. The boy shook. And he summoned all of his enchanters, his astrologers, his diviners, all the wise men of Babylon, and said, whoever reads this right and tells me what it means will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around his neck, and he will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom. Big old bag on it. He want answers. Right? But they couldn't read it. They couldn't tell him what it meant. So it shook him even more. He got even more scared, because all of the people that he surrounded himself with, which is crazy when you really think about it. Read verse 10. The queen, his queen, hearing the voices of the king and his nobles, came into the banquet hall. May the king leave forever, she said. Don't be alarmed. Don't look so pale. There is a man in your kingdom who has the spirit of the holy God is in him. And in the time of your father, he was found to have insight and intelligence and wisdom like that of the gods. And your father, King Nebuchadnezzar, appointed him chief of the magicians, enchanters, astrologers, diviners. And he did this because Daniel, who the king called Belteshazzar, was found to have a keen mind of knowledge and understanding and the ability to interpret dreams, explain riddles, and solve difficult problems. Call for Daniel, and he will tell you what the writing means. So if she knows all of these things about Daniel, what else does she know? They know the whole story. They know what Daniel did from the time that Nebuchadnezzar brought them in when he seized Jerusalem. They know the stories of all of the time that they were with the king. They denied the king's food. They know the story of the fiery furnace. They know all of these things. They're very aware of all of these things. So Daniel brought forth in front of the king. And the king said to him, "Are you Daniel, one of the exiles my father the king brought from Judah? I have heard that the spirit of the God is in you, that you have insight, intelligence, and outstanding wisdom. I heard that you got wisdom. I heard you got the spirit of God in you. I heard all of these things, which means I heard it all. I know the entire story. I'm aware." Everybody follow me? "The wise men and enchanters were brought before me to read this writing and tell me what it means, but they could not explain it. Now I've heard that you are able to give interpretations and to solve difficult problems. And if you can read this writing, tell me what it means. You will be clothed in purple and have a gold chain placed around your neck, and you will be made the third highest ruler in the kingdom." And Daniel answered, "Keep your gifts and give your rewards to someone else. Nevertheless, I will read the writing for the king and tell him what it means. Your Majesty," pay attention to this, "the Most High God gave your father Nebuchadnezzar sovereignty and greatness and glory and splendor. Because of the high position he gave him, all of the nations and all of the peoples of every language dreaded and feared him. Those the king wanted to put to death, he put to death. Those he wanted to spare, he spared. Those he wanted to promote, he promoted. Those he wanted to humble, he humbled. But when his heart became arrogant and hardened with pride, he was disposed from his royal throne and stripped of his glory. He was driven away from people and given the mind of an animal, lived with the wild donkeys, and ate grass like the ox. And his body was drenched with the dew of heaven, and until he acknowledged the Most High God is sovereign over all kingdoms and the earth and sets them over anyone he wishes." And this is very, very important in verse 22. "But you, Belshazzar, his son, have not humbled yourself, though you knew all of this." You saw what he went through. You knew when he got arrogant and prideful. You knew when he got brought down, and you knew what that made him and the man that turned him into once he come out of that. You know the wisdom that he gained, and you know how he turned his life around and acknowledged the Most High God as the sovereign Lord. You knew all of these things, yet you gave yourself up against the Lord of heaven. You had the goblets from his temple brought to you. You started wilding out here with all of this information. All of this knowledge, all of this access. You know all of these things, yet the decision that you made was to go against the Father in heaven and start worshiping false gods and defile yourself.
He was in the same environment, like same exact environment side by side. Because a prince to a king, most men have their sons right by him. So you saw almost firsthand everything that, you know what I mean? Same way that the queen, how she saw it.
You saw everything and made a decision to say, "Nah, I'm gonna go the opposite way." So Daniel told me, "So here what these words mean. Mene, God has numbered the days of your reign and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed on the scales and found wanting. Peres, your kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and the Persians." And then at Belshazzar's command, Daniel was clothed in pure and purple, and gold was placed around his neck, and he was proclaimed the third highest ruler in the kingdom. And that very night, the king of the Babylonians, Belteshazzar, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at the age of 62. Immediately. That God's words were fulfilled immediately. going to go to 6 and we're going to close out. We're going to close out and really try to put a bow on how important it is to stand on the principles, the ways, the character of God, having people around you that's on that same type of timing, and not allowing the environment that we have used as an excuse in the past to make us who we are. Because that doesn't have to be the case. We can make a decision to operate a certain kind of way. We can make a decision to follow God. We can make a decision not to. Daniel 6, it said it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom, with 3 administrators over them, one of them who was Daniel. The satraps were made accountable to them so that the king might not suffer a loss. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrators and the satraps by his exceptional qualities that the king planned to set him over the whole kingdom. So his character, his ways, the way he'd been operating this whole time during the first 5 chapters, everybody's been watching it. Everybody's been witnessing him standing on business, him not faltering, him not changing his ways, him not letting the environment change him or his character, the way that he operates. And everyone saw it. And now the king is about to put him over the whole kingdom. At this, pay attention, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds of charges against Daniel and in his conduct and his government affairs. But they were unable to do so because he had no corruption in him. He was trustworthy. He was honest. He was righteous. He had the right people around him. He had godly counsel. He gave godly counsel. He spoke with wisdom and tact because he had wisdom and tact. And what a wise person was like, oh, he ain't done nothing wrong. He's never done anything. He operating the way he operating. Leave him alone. But these men said, we will never find any basis for charges against this man, Daniel, unless it has something to do with the law of his God. Because they knew he don't play about his God. He don't play about his ways. He don't play about God's character. He don't play about God's instructions. Daniel don't fold. And none of the people around Daniel. So they said, they came up with a plan. Oh yeah, we got him. We got him now. They go to the king. King Darius, may King Darius live forever. The royal administrators, the prefects, the satraps, advisors, and his governors have all agreed, because you got to remember, he delegated. Right? We have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce a decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days, except to you, your majesty, shall be thrown into the lion's den. But now your majesty issued a decree and put it into writing, so it cannot be altered. And in accordance with the law, with the environment, with the system, it cannot be repealed. Because, you know, we in this nation, you're good and you're honorable because you follow the law of the land. What happens when the law of the land tell you that you can't do what God told you to do? What decision do you make? What business do you stand on? So King Darius put the decree in writing. Now it's law. When Daniel learned that the decree had been published, when Daniel heard that it was illegal for him to do what God has told him to do and instructed him to do, he went upstairs through the room, opened the windows toward Jerusalem, and did exactly what he's instructed to do and kept doing what he's been doing since day one. 3 times a day, got down on his knees and prayed. They gave thanks to God, just like he had done before. Don't matter the environment. Don't matter what law. Didn't matter what change. This is what I'm on. I'm radical with it. I'm out here with it. that same attitude and that same way that we live out here in this nation before we found the Lord, that same type of energy, that same time of aggressiveness and boldness. Yeah, this is what I'm on. And this is what we own over here. And so they knew that's what Daniel was on. It's the reason why they planned it this way. They immediately ran to go catch him praying. So they went as a group. Verse 11 said, then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help. So they went immediate to the king. They went to the king and spoke to him about his royal decree. Hey, king, didn't you publish a decree saying that during the next month, ain't nobody supposed to be praying to nothing, no God, no human, no nothing except to you? He said, yes. The decree stands in accordance with the law of the Medes and the Persians, which cannot be repealed. And then they said, remember the man. Then they said to him, Daniel is one of the exiles from Judah. He pays no attention to you. He still prays. Not only does he still pray, he prays 3 times a day. They putting that extra on it, but they putting that cap on it. And when the king heard this, he was greatly distressed because he was determined to rescue Daniel, made every effort until sundown to save him. Then when the men went to the group as King Darius and said to him, remember the law, and it can't be changed. You got to follow the law. This is what the environment and the system dictates, and we cannot appeal it. We can't change it. This is the letter of the law. We got to follow it. So the king gave the order, and they brought Daniel and threw him into the lion's den. And the king said to Daniel, may your God who you serve continually rescue you. And we know Daniel was thrown into the lion's den. We know that story. If you don't, please go read Daniel 6. God sent down his angels, shutting the mouths of the lions. Right? But down in, I think it's A17. 17, a stone was brought down and placed over the mouth of the den, and the king sealed it with his signet ring and with the rings of the nobles, so Daniel's situation might not be changed. Then the king returned to his palace, and he spent the night without eating, without any errands. He didn't want no food. He didn't want no women. He didn't want nothing. He couldn't sleep. Daniel was on his mind, and he was just hoping. It's a part of him hoping that God came in there and rescued Daniel. And as soon as the sun came up, verse 19, at the first light of dawn, the king got up and hurried to the lion's den. And when he came near to the den, he didn't wait till he got there. He started yelling when he got around the corner, Daniel, servant of the living God, of your God, whom you serve continue, been able to rescue from the lions? And Daniel answered, my king, may the king live forever. My God sent his angel and shut the mouths of the lions, and they have not hurt me because I was found innocent in his sight, nor I've ever done wrong to you. I've done nothing. The king was overjoyed, and he gave orders to lift Daniel out of the den. And when Daniel was lifted out of the den, no wounds was found on him because he had trusted in his God, no matter the environment. No matter his circumstances, no matter what he was facing, time after time after time, my faith is in God, period. At the king's commands, the men who had falsely accused Daniel were brought and thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and children. And before they even reached the floor of the den, the lions overpowered them and crushed all of their bones. See how important it is to stand on what we stand on? How important it is to have the proper community around you and the proper people around you, no matter what happens in the environment, no matter where we from or where we at, where we got to go. So is it the environment or is it our community? The same hot water that will make an egg hard will make a potato soft. It ain't the environment. It's the decision that we make. of how we're going to operate in the way that we're going to move. It's a daily decision that we make. Be mindful of who we surround ourselves with, because even if our environment changes, our characters won't change. Our ways won't change. Our language won't change. Our mindset won't change. We stay focused on the mission. We keep our eyes on God, no matter what we face, and that's even death. And that's what we're going to stand on, and that's how we moving. That's how God wants us to move. Unwielding faith. Jesus said, when I come back, will I find faith? My brothers and sisters on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, I appreciate you joining me. My brothers and sisters on Instagram, please follow us on Be Strong and Courageous on all platforms. BSCD4719 on all platforms. Until next time, we'll see you guys next Sunday for another Bible study. As we say in Be Strong and Courageous 4719, I love y'all. Enjoy the rest of your week.